The Barbarian War, Chapters 33 and 34, The Cost of Honor. Chapter 33. There was no way Jiaj could have possibly blocked Chugaz Uidan's charge. With over 100 kilograms of body mass hurtling towards him, it would take someone far stronger than a Konheim warrior to stand firm. Which is why he simply avoided the attack instead. Jiaj pirouetted out of the way as Chugaz flew past him, delivering a wicked backslash that left a thin trail of orange blood along his ribcage. The Diaksh bellowed with pain and anger, spinning around to face him as danced clear of the follow-up attack. Jiaj's blade found nothing but air before he quickly recovered and returned to his stance. "First blood is mine," he said derisively. Chugaz's hand went briefly to his side before he snarled and charged forward once again, whipping his blade back and forth before him like a buzzsaw as he forced Jiaj back. He gave up ground begrudgingly, allowing Chugaz to flail away as they neared the edge of the ring, then suddenly dropped and rolled forward, coming in under the Diaksh's knife arm for a disemboweling thrust. Only to realize too late Chugaz's attack had been a feint. His offhand snapped forward, pointing directly at Jiaj's head as a tube concealed within his sleeve coughed, sending an invisible burst of vapor directly into his eyes. His arm came up automatically as searing pain stabbed into his brain, protecting his face as he desperately tried to scrabble away, with Chugaz close on his heels. Jiaj's sudden collapse did not go unnoticed. "Damn it," Musashi cursed as Tango quickly chimed in. "Got him in my sights," she said casually. "Want me to take him out?" "Negative," he said tersely. "We kill him now, and we're the ones who interfered. Remain in counter-sniper mode." "Copy," Tango replied as Jiaj lunged back up to his feet. The pain was excruciating as he fought to clear his eyes. With his vision blurred, Chugaz's blade struck again and again, stabbing into his arms and chest. Jiaj backpedaled, desperate to put some distance between them as he heard his enemy's mocking laugh. "Surrender, Jiaj Guyaz, and I will grant you a quick death," he sneered, before bounding forward once more. Jiaj froze, his head canted at an odd angle, as Chugaz's booted feet slammed into the earth during his charge. The Diaksh's blade was held high as he came in for the kill, only to gasp in shock as Jiaj's hand blurred, hurling his dagger straight into his chest. Sergeant Lin's teeth flashed in fierce triumph as Chugaz staggered back, gripping the handle protruding from his ribcage and pulling it free as Jiaj turned to face him. His eyes were red and swollen, but he tracked his opponent's every movement with ease as he strode forward, his empty hands raised in a martial artist's stance. Chugaz stumbled back in fear as Jiaj stalked his prey, and in that moment Lin knew the fight was over. Chugaz screamed to the heavens as his hands slipped inside his tunic before whipping them out to his sides. Nasat shielded his eyes as blinding light and thunderous explosions filled the ring, as everyone around him suddenly disappeared from sight. "Flashbangs and smoke!" Musashi shouted, charging forward as he raised his carbine. "Weapons free!" The amphitheater descended into chaos as both sides opened up. Tango's rifle coughed again and again as she struck with deadly precision, when suddenly Whisper came bursting up out of the ground and leapt into the enemy horde, his blades flashing as he cut through the ranks like a berserk chainsaw. "Where is Chugaz?" Jiaj howled with fury as he staggered out of the choking cloud of smoke. "Does anyone have eyes on?" Musashi demanded, speaking into his mic, when the whine of turbines whipped his head around. The shuttle lifted off and clawed its way into the sky, disappearing in a flash as he snarled in impotent rage. "Damn it, the bastard escaped!" Chugaz hissed in pain as he slapped a dressing on his wound. The blade had cut deep into his chest, but had managed to miss the vital organs by mere fractions. It had not been the killing blow Jiaj had hoped for, but even blinded Chugaz knew his opponent had gained the upper hand. At that point, his death was all but inevitable, except that he had planned for this possibility. The grenades had camouflaged his getaway, buying enough time to board the shuttle and launch before anyone realized what happened. Now to finish it once and for all. Nasat charged through the smoke, firing his sidearm as they fought to take the amphitheater. The enemy was starting to falter, but there were several pockets of resistance holding firm, making them pay for every meter of ground. Sergeant Lin laid down a base of fire, driving them back, as Nasat leapt over a low wall and breached their defenses. "Forward!" he shouted, firing once more before his weapon clicked on an empty chamber. An explosion knocked him off his feet, leaving him dazed, as a squad of Konim appeared out of nowhere and counterattacked, driving his allies back. He struggled to reload, but his movements were disjointed and uncoordinated. Nasat could only stare blankly as they advanced, though as he watched a warrior's head exploded in a fountain of orange gore, cut down by Tango's sniper rifle. Another joined his comrade in death as they surged forward, but he was slow to respond, his brain and body numbed by the blast's concussion. Whisper slashed his way through a cluster of Konhim like a scythe, fighting to get clear, his body spattered with alien blood. But there was no way he'd get clear in time. There had been a time, long ago, when he would have meekly submitted to his fate, bowing his head and baring his neck as he waited for the end. But that individual no longer existed. Instead, he faced his enemy with open eyes, as death came to claim him at last. Something slammed into him, knocking him clear as a furious burst of weapons fire echoed nearby. By sheer happenstance, his fingers closed around a fresh magazine, slapping it into his pistol with practiced ease as he staggered back to his feet, searching for a target. But as he looked around in amazement, there was none to be found. Chugaz stormed onto the Bridge of Resolve, throwing himself into his command chair. "Target the amphitheater on the planet's surface and fire!" he ordered. The tactical officer stared blankly at him, as if he did not comprehend his words. With a wordless scream, he yanked out his sidearm and pointed it at his head. "Do as I command!" he howled, as Ajum Ganak's face suddenly appeared on the display. "When two combatants enter the field of honor, only one may leave it alive," Ajum said coldly. Yet Jiaj Guyaz still lives. His glare was impassive as he gazed at Chugaz. "How can this be, Diaksh?" he asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "A detail I am in the process of rectifying," he shot back, only belatedly realizing how it might look with his weapon drawn and pointed at the crew. Hastily, he slid it back into its holster, but Ajum was just getting started. "You would bombard your opponent in a contest where only the steel of a blade is permitted?" Ajum sneered in disapproval. "You escaped justice on the planet's surface by violating our most sacred traditions, and in doing so, revealed your true nature." Raising his hand, he pointed at Chugaz. "I declare you a coward, and unfit to bear the title Diaksh, for only a warrior may claim that authority." "You insignificant insect!" Chugaz hissed as he leapt to his feet. "You think to judge me? I, who have given you the victory Jiaj could not. I should have dealt with you long ago." "Victory!" Ajum scoffed. "What victory? The triumvirate worlds lie untouched. Your words are empty and without meaning." His nostrils flared as he glared at him from the display. "As worthless and threadbare as your honor." "Enough!" Chugaz's hands clenched in fists of rage. "You will submit to my authority or you will die." "Then I die with honor," Ajum said in contempt, as his face disappeared from the screen. In all his years, Chugaz had never known a wrath like he felt at that moment. He grasped the tactical officer and threw him to the deck, his fist slamming into the console as he triggered a missile launch. "Kill them! All that oppose us!" he shrieked as the fleet began to tear itself apart. Flames licked the ancient structure as Nasat stumbled over the body of a Konhim warrior. The survivors of the brief battle looked to one another, exhausted and disoriented, as they struggled to regroup. Musashi made his way over to join him, shaking his head in resignation as they watched Whisper posing the dead enemy in some sort of twisted tableau. Jiaj spotted his actions and advanced on the maniac, with murder in his eyes, as Whisper raised his hands in supplication and backed away, giggling as he did so. "You all right, sir?" Musashi asked, tearing his eyes away from the bizarre scene. Nasat slowly nodded. "I was certain the end had come at last, but—" He froze for a moment, as a confused expression came over his face. In fact, I am unsure how I survived." Musashi didn't respond. Nasat looked at him curiously. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I think I know," he said softly. "Know what?" Nasat asked, more confused than ever. "How you survived," he managed to get out as he stepped aside, revealing the body of Sergeant Lin, his blank eyes staring up at the sky. Chapter 34. Nasat knelt on the ground, his head bowed, in front of the freshly dug mound of soil. His eyes closed as he murmured softly, while the others stood a respectful distance apart. Their heads were also bowed, as they kept vigil alongside the sortuar, as many of them echoed his benediction in their own words, as each said goodbye in their own way to Sergeant Major Jehiel Lin. Jiaj remained silent, following the lead of the others, though in truth he found the ritual to be a strange one. For the Konhim, the death of a warrior who fell in battle was an occasion to be celebrated, not mourned. Many tales of their life would be told, as friends and family came together to honor him, and while perhaps the rites were bittersweet at times, they were never sorrowful. Finally, Nasat lifted his head and opened his eyes, but showed no interest in moving. He stared at the simple marker they had erected, lost in his own thoughts, as the others glanced at one another, each unwilling to intrude on his grief. Perhaps it was unsurprising that Jiaj was the one who finally approached him, kneeling down at his side, as they contemplated Sergeant Lin's final resting place together. "The first time I met him, he terrified me," Nasat said quietly, as Jiaj regarded him. "I had never really known a human before, and as he screamed at us, I remember fearing for my life." A brief chuckle escaped his lips, though it was quickly suppressed. It all seemed so easy for him, so natural. As he trained us to fight, I knew I could never match his skills in battle. "Speaking as one who has fought both against and alongside you, I would disagree," Jiaj said after a moment. Nasat shrugged off his words. "I was lucky. Nothing else." A distant look came to his eyes, as he gazed at something only he could see. "On Uzonks, when your forces bombarded us, he and I were the only survivors of our company. What we went through together—" His voice trailed off, shaking his head as he tried to banish the ghosts. "I made him a promise that day, that when his time came, I would recite the prayer for the dead." Nasat sighed, as he turned to face Jiaj at last. "He was more to me than a mere advisor. He became my mentor, and my friend." Nasat closed his eyes and whispered, "And I shall miss him." Jiaj turned to gaze at the mound of dirt. "If he were here now, what advice would he give you?" he asked gently. Nasat took a deep breath and opened his eyes. "Do what you have to do," he said grimly, as he rose to his feet at last, taking up Lin's battered rifle. Scanning the ruined amphitheater, Jiaj could only nod, rising as well. Words of wisdom indeed. Before he could respond, Nasat spotted Musashi and Greybird approaching. "Sir, you need to see this," Musashi said without preamble, before glancing at Jiaj. "You too." The Konam and the Sortuar shared a look, falling in behind the humans as Greybird led them to his improvised camo bunker. The face of Ajum Ganak could be seen on the display, stained with soot and dried blood. "Dayaksh, we have little time," he said in a rush. "Chugaz Uidan's dishonorable actions have split the fleet in two. Many have turned against him, but he still commands most of the fleet. We waged a bitter battle, but were unable to prevent his escape." "He escaped again?" Musashi said in disbelief. "Unfortunately, yes," Ajum replied. "As I said, most of the fleet still stands with him. The rest have sworn themselves to your banner, Dayaksh Jiaj Guyaz," he said with a respectful bow. Jiaj nodded. "Where have they gone?" he asked. Ajum paused for a moment, glancing at the others surrounding him, before finally responding. "He has set a direct course to the Triumvirate Worlds." Nasat gritted his teeth. "We must stop him," he said adamantly. Ajum regarded the Sortuar coolly. "You ask much. Even those of us who have turned our backs to Chugaz Uidan have little love for your kind. Many of us hope he succeeds." "If Chugaz Uidan attacks, it will mean the end of our race," Jiaj predicted, his expression troubled. "Not today nor tomorrow, but it will come to pass. Their worlds are too vast to destroy quickly, and as he wages his war, the humans will be rearming themselves as quickly as possible, with whatever they can. They have been wounded, yes, but the wound was not a mortal one, and there is no more dangerous an opponent than one bent on vengeance. The Konhim rebel looked as if he had bit into a lemon, but he did not refute his words. What would you ask of us, Dayaksh? Jiaj took a deep breath. We must bring an end to Chugaz Uidan's reign, and to do so we will require allies. He regarded the others nearby with a wry expression. Even if they were once our enemies. Ajum hissed through his teeth, before lowering his eyes. It will not be easy, Dayaksh, but those of us sworn to you will obey. Send your shuttles to us, Jiaj commanded. Once aboard, we will set our course and pursue Chugaz Uidan to the end of the galaxy, if need be. We will launch immediately, Ajum vowed. Excellent, he said with a thin smile, for we have much to discuss. We will be ready, he assured him, before disappearing from the screen. Space was at a premium aboard the Konhim ship Dauntless, as they struggled to accommodate the new arrivals. The vessel bore many scars from its battle with Chugaz Uidan's loyalists, but as Jiaj scanned her with a practiced eye, he pronounced her fit and ready to serve. If only all his problems were as simple. The Konhim eyed their new Tetrarchy allies with suspicion, a sentiment that was returned in full measure. Jiaj and Nasat stood side by side as they struggled to contain the more dangerous elements from both camps, but each knew an uphill battle awaited them. Have you pinpointed Chugaz Uidan's target among the triumvirate worlds? Jiaj asked. Ajum shook his head. The distance is too great, he admitted. We were able only to determine the general direction. Even if you had, there's no reason why he couldn't change course at the last minute, Musashi pointed out, especially if he wanted to keep us guessing. We must contact the Tetrarchy and warn them, Nasat said fiercely. Without a specific target, a general warning could prove far more dangerous in the long run, Jiaj said unhappily. We need more data. At this range, more data will be difficult to come by, Ajum replied. We are already at the limitations of our equipment. Then we must provide them with our best conjectures and pray we are correct, Nasat said candidly. Jiaj turned to look at the map. There must be many of those supporting Chugaz Uidan that do so only from inertia, he mused. He will want victories as soon as possible to maintain their loyalty, as many as he can, as quickly as he can. If he manages that, there may be many of your own supporters who will be tempted to join him, Ajum admitted reluctantly. Victory is a powerful narcotic. Nasat rose to his feet and went to the map, studying it intently before pointing at a section of the display. Here, he said with sudden confidence, the Chenur cluster. A dozen worlds in close proximity to one another. He could launch strikes on many of them before anyone could respond. Musashi nodded slowly. It's only conjecture at this point, but I agree. If I wanted to rack up as many victories as possible, that's where I'd strike. It is better than nothing, Nasat replied. Will there be any difficulties in contacting the Tetrarchy? I somehow doubt they will listen to anything we have to say, Ajum said pointedly. Not necessarily, Greybird interjected. With a few modifications, we should be able to spoof a Tetrarchy signal, enough to get our foot in the door at least. Even if such a thing were possible, our ships will not be enough to stop Chugaz Uidan, and he has a significant head start, Ajum said darkly. If we warn the Tetrarchy, do they have anything left to prevent his assault? All eyes turned to Nasat. He returned their gaze for a moment before bowing his head. I don't know, he whispered.